Hey, welcome to Combat Vet Vision. This is a platform for veterans, combat veterans, sponsors, supporters, volunteers, uh, and family members to talk about their issues, talk about things that come up, the transition in their lives, why they're serving, why they're still helping our service members serve in the communities that they serve in. My co-host JB Brown, a world-renowned chef and
Good afternoon, Aaron.
Coast Guard
And,
vet.
and
Yeah,
yes,
that's right. That's right. Hey, good to see you, Chef JB. We had a
yeah,
great
it's great.
weekend. We had a great
Yeah,
weekend this weekend. Pancake breakfast, all the good stuff that you did for the honor flight,
yep.
and all kinds of stuff. We'll be talking about that later on today too. And hey, my guest today, Paula Kemp, United States Navy veteran, female veteran that military sexual trauma survivor, and she wrote a book called Unjustly Served, along with a provider that helped her navigate that. So, Paula, welcome to the platform. Thanks for being here on Combat Vet Vision, and it's such
Awesome.
an honor to have you because we go way back, and,
Yeah.
and we've had some time to share in your development of what you were trying to do with veteran sisters to just being friends over the years and seeing what you're doing and how you're doing it and being a veteran yourself. So, if you could start, I know we're going to focus on, the military sexual trauma gets kind of out there so much, but you have a story. You came up as, talk about your childhood a little bit, talk about why you were inspired to join the military, the United States Navy, photographer, combat photographer. you know there's so much more to you than just that. There's just talk about that for a while. Tell us your story. We want to hear it.
Story. How much time do you have?
We we have about we have an hour here, but we got about 50 minutes with you, so we're gonna
Okay,
take you
I'll
down
do
this trail.
the kind of quick version. I grew up in Pomona, California. I like to say I'm a street rat. I'm kind of a city girl, but born on the wrong side of the tracks. Single mom that raised me and my sister, and until I was 15, and so I just kind of floundered around and um, was home when the street lights turned on and out as soon as I could. I was always out and about and enjoyed going to school, but I wasn't a very good student. I was more of the social kid. And even back then in elementary school and what have you, I defended, the, I don't want to say weaker people, but the ones who were picked on. And I'd get in fights. I'd get in trouble for getting into fights, but I was fighting the bullies who were causing stuff and hurting other people. So I've kind of had this fighter in me since a very young age. My mother remarried when I was 15, and then had my little sister. And my mom married a Marine Corps veteran. And so I went from being a street rat to a Marine. It was quite a shock to the system. I was the oldest and used to being the one who kind of ran the roost. So he came in and started talking college and all that kind of stuff, and thought he was crazy. But when he stepped in, I was 15, and I was in, I think, junior high, or I don't remember when exactly they got married, but I had the reading level of like a third grader. And so, my teachers would always say, oh, you're never going to go anywhere. You're going to end up barefoot and pregnant, this back in the 70s and 80s. And so I just never really dreamed of really doing a whole lot. There wasn't a lot of motivation there until he came along. And so he just really kicked my butt. He had 2 years of fighting with me. And then my little sister came along, and life changed a little bit there too. So I decided I wanted to join the Air Force, and I was all ready to go to take my ASVAB. And my stepdad, who I call my dad, he's the one who basically raised me from that point on. He said none of his girls are going to go into the military. So he had 3 girls at the time, and of course, me being me, I argued with him, and I said, well, I'm going. And I went to get in my car that morning to go take my ASVAB, and not just one tire was flat, 2. So, he went out there and flattened 2 tires. So I didn't go. My life kind of took me in a different direction. And I moved out about 3 days after graduating high school and lived with my aunt out in Hollywood and kind of played around out there for a while. Met my husband and got married, had 3 kids, did a lot of other stuff, during that time, but then moved back home to the Pomona area. And my little sister was now high school senior, and she was kind of messing off, and we were kind of worried she wasn't going to graduate. So I heard that they had an incentive to go to the military and join the military, and there was like a $10,000 incentive or something like that. So I took her down and I said, hey, let's go check this out. 10 grand, wow, and took her down there and she found out about active duty Navy, and I found out about the reserves. So my youngest was starting kindergarten. So I have 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl. And my daughter was starting kindergarten. And I looked at my husband and I said, you know what, I'm going to do this. It's my turn. And I had helped him get on the fire department. So he was a firefighter for the city of Ontario. And, I stayed home, took care of the kids and everything. But I said, it's 1 weekend a month and 2 weeks out of the year. We can do this. It's my turn. I'm going to do this. So I went and I took the ASVABs, and I swear to God, that computer had a hiccup that day, because I don't know a ratchet from a wrench from a rivet. And I ended up scoring high enough to be able to kind of pick what I wanted to do. And the thing that came to my attention was photography. And I thought, I didn't know the first thing about being on that side of the camera, but I had done a little bit of modeling out in Hollywood. And I thought, well, you know what? I think I'd be pretty good, because I know what it's like being on that side of the camera. And I can tell, hey, turn your head this way, or hey, fix your hair, or whatever. So I thought I'd be pretty good at that. So I signed up to be a photographer, and lo and behold, it wasn't a photographer billet per se. It was a combat photographer billet. There's 2 different billets in the Navy. And so I joined the reserves, and I showed up my first day. And the program that I went into was called the AIA program, if I remember correctly, like Accelerated Integration something. And it basically was like on-the-job training. So you didn't have to have prior military service. And usually they would take like police officers, nurses, things that could easily cross over into the military side. But I dabbled in real estate. I was a stay-at-home mom, PTA, all that kind of fun stuff. But I showed up, and it was on-the-job training, and I thought, okay, I can do this. And the guys in my unit were awesome and took me under their wing and started teaching me how to do stuff. And within the first 3 drill weekends, we had there was a training exercise called Colonel Blitz. So I just still didn't know anything. I mean, they had to dress me. I didn't even know what bootstraps were, and so they showed me how to wear the uniform and put a camera in my hand and said, okay, let's go out and play. And then I show up for this training. I mean, I really did not know what I was doing, obviously. They put me with this female chief, and she was active duty. And so I was just there for the weekend. Actually, I think it was for like a week. And she said, okay, here you go, hands me the camera. I said, I don't know how to, you don't know me, and you must not know this program, because I'm just here to hold your, your camera or your film or something like that. And she said, she was kind of floored. And so she set the camera for me, and she said, here, take this, get in, get the shot, and get out. Okay, so off we went, and there were explosions. I mean, this was at Camp Pendleton, and they had amphibious assaults and, LCACs coming off of the ships and landing on the beach. And I'm in there, and I'm just like, this is awesome. and I'm taking pictures and just hanging out and stepping in front of generals and whoever else and getting yelled at and just saying, hey, I'm just doing as I'm told, and I got away with it. Came back with some pretty good pictures. Excuse me. And they, that kind of launched my unit, kind of going, wow, okay, we'll take her. And I went home and was pretty proud of myself, and decided that I wanted to take a few classes at the local college, learn more about photography. And just grew from there. And I eventually ended up being very well taught. My brothers in my unit and a couple of my sisters just really encouraged and motivated me and supported me and taught me. And then we went digital, and then it was instant learning, you know. So I started getting requested more, and I started just really enjoying and owning my position. So then 9/11 hit, and you know, we all got called up and activated and sent into different locations and different things in support. And life changed right about then. But I went to boot camp when I was 36, and but I joined when I was 34. So it was 2 years of them prepping me to go to boot camp. It was a really weird, people were like, what? It was a really weird program. And so they were supposed to get me ready for up to week 6. And my guys are real funny. So my brother's all, okay, what do I got to do? So I cut my hair, dyed it brown. They said, just blend in, don't ever volunteer for anything, and go home and watch Full Metal Jacket. That was my prep for boot camp. So I survived. I learned a lot about myself, and realized that, you know, mind over matter, you can get through a lot of different situations. And that's pretty much that. That's what got me there.
That's an amazing story. That's really cool. And anybody who serves on Camp Pendleton or in the area knows about Colonel Blitz, and especially if you've driven by during that time frame, you can definitely see a lot of action happening on Reds Beach.
Yep.
And I remember, you know, spending many nights there, and having vehicles stuck all the way up to the axles and beyond one time when it rained. So it was pretty amazing time. So it was great. Colonel Blitz is just an incredible function of everybody making it happen on such a big scale, helicopters, everything. So
yeah,
that's an exciting time. But, you know, talk about how things progress for you, and then you know, just the dark side of the military sexual trauma, and what's inspired you to write this book. You have this website,
okay.
You know, just you know, get into all the rawness of it. And the other thing is too, you know, we talked about it too, about you know, a lot of times female veterans, and this is one of the things that I've noticed, that they just don't feel like veterans after they leave the service, right? And it's something that you and I talked about. And if you could kind of go into that a little bit, because I think it's such an important subject matter, and why it's still so important for our female veterans to have you know, equal look at as a veteran. And, you know, sometimes they're so helpful in places that we sometimes don't remember that they're a veteran, because they choose not to really kind of refer that too often. And I think we need to really kind of highlight that a little bit better in our society. And we need to kind of make sure that that's out there. If you can put your scope on that for me, please.
Well, so, you know, it's not easy being a female in the military. You're kind of between a rock and a hard place, because you've got to be able to fit in, right? So you got to become one of the guys, or you don't, you know, and you kind of navigate differently. My way was to fit in and be one of the guys. I was always a tomboy. So I really resonated with the guys pretty well, and I could fit in. Plus I raised 2 boys, you know, and my daughter, but I was just always a very curious person. So, and I also didn't have any problem dishing it back. So if things that the guys would say and stuff, I'd be you know, it didn't bother me when I was at home, when I was with my unit. You know, we would tit for tat back and forth all the time. I had a blast. And, you know, maybe I could have gotten written up for saying things if somebody was sensitive to that. But back then, in our unit, there just wasn't that sensitivity. When there was, it kind of made me uncomfortable, because I remember them starting the programs of the sensitivity awareness training. And we had to all go sit, you know, you had to give up a day. And this is still when we were on drill duty, and we'd have to take a day you're only there for 2 days. So, we'd have to take a full afternoon and go sit in these classes, and everybody would just bitch about it and it'd be like, God, and it was the red light, the yellow light, the green light. And it was just dumb. It just was not fitting, for our environment. So that made me uncomfortable because I thought, God, I hope they're not thinking that I'm, the one that's pushing for this. I'm not sensitive yet, and it was like, I just hadn't experienced everything that I experienced. Now, I had experienced trauma as a child, sexual trauma as a child, bullying, all of that. So I knew how to function with things that are uncomfortable situations. So I didn't have really a problem with that. But the guys in my unit were just fabulous. The active duty side too. Every time I went out with them, I fit right in. I did my job. I just buckle down and do what I got to do. I got to the point where I've been on a lot of different Colonel Blitzes. There'd be a series every year. They'd be at different locations and different environments. And I've been to Hawaii. I've been around the world for the Navy, being a combat photographer, and done lots of different trainings and exposures. And finally, I got to the point where I was able to go out on my own. So they would deploy me or let me go with like a journalist or a cameraman that was a videographer. So I started doing a lot more stuff on my own, or they would put me into positions where I could go out and get the job done, where they didn't have to babysit me. So they sent me off to San Francisco for Fleet Week. And I was pretty experienced enough by then. I'd done enough, and I was the first one in. So they kind of made me the crew chief for scouting. So I got there and a couple days before everybody else, and I was attached to a ship. And they said, all right, well, they were shipboard photographers, and I was used to being out in the field and talking and maneuvering and getting into positions that I knew I needed to get the shot. So I hit the ground running, and, it's beautiful San Francisco. And this is back in like the early 2000s. And I knew I wanted to get some advantage points. So I was kind of scouting around, and I went to this old World War II. It's a museum now, and it used to be the landing strip up at San Francisco for the World War II planes. And it has a crow's nest. It used to be the tower. So I went into the museum, and I met the curator. He's this little old guy and really sweet. And we're just talking, and I'm in uniform. And I said, I'm here to scout for pictures for Fleet Week and blah, blah, blah. I tell him who I am and all that. And I said, man, it'd be awesome if we get up there. And he goes, well, come on up there. I'll show you. It's a beautiful view. So we get up there, up on the crow's nest up there. And I look out, and there's this gorgeous Golden Gate Bridge. And I just kind of to myself, I out loud said, man, that'd be awesome to get a shot from up there. Well, after a while, he got to know me a little bit, and he says, well, you know what? I'm going to put you in contact with the bridge manager, and you can go talk to him. So I did. I went over there and I talked to him, and I somehow was allowed to get to the top of the Golden Gate Bridge and take pictures up there. So I took my duty driver with me because I didn't know San Francisco to drive around, and she lives there. And so she got to go up there with me and take pictures. So I've got this awesome picture of the Golden Gate Bridge, with the rails coming down. I mean, it was a life-changing moment in my life. It was just like, holy smokes. When I went back to the boat and I told the ship, and I told the second class there who was in charge of the lab, I told him, I said, I'm gonna get up there. This was before I got up there. And he says, no, they'll never let you up there. And so the day that I came back and I said, look at these, and I showed him the pictures, and he was so pissed that he didn't forward the pictures to go into the magazine or the newspapers, because they were freaking awesome. And anyway, long story short, he ended up getting Captain Mast and all that. But that was my first experience of somebody not being respectful or appreciative of the job well done. So I wasn't used to that. So that kind of floored me a little bit. But, jealousy I'm used to. Like, okay, well, whatever. So every night, the first night everybody gets there, each ship has a sponsor. And so our sponsor was, for this ship that I was attached to, was a brewery. So the next day, that night, we were all invited to go to the brewery to be sponsored as a big party. So we all go there, and I had met a few people on the ship, and got invited to go. I hung out with these people, but I had to get up early the next day because it was Fleet Week, so I had to work and everything. So I had a few beers with them, got to know some more people that were there, and then I was like, oh crap, I got to go, and nobody else was ready to leave because they were all having fun. And I didn't know my way back. So I was kind of a little nervous about that. I'm like, all right, well, I got to go and, just tell me how to get there, give me directions to get back to the ship. And so this one guy, he was a first class, and he said, I'll walk with you. I'll walk you back. All right, cool. Say goodbye to everybody. And we're walking back, and it's just pitch black. We're going through the financial district, which obviously is closed. There's just absolutely crickets. And so, he took advantage of me. I don't like the R word, but that was kind of my experience. So he raped me, wasn't violent or anything like that. And I just kind of try to, that's kind of one of my ways of handling or dealing with it. But I guess I'm grateful that he did end up walking me back to the ship. And then told me, if you tell anybody, they won't believe you because you're only a reservist and I'm a first class. So I didn't tell anybody. And I didn't tell anybody, not because I was afraid of him after the fact, once I was back on board. It was more of, I was afraid that my brothers in my unit, number one, they'd never let me go out alone again. Number two, I think the fantasy was that they would come and beat him up and then they'd get in trouble. It was like this kind of idea in my head because they were very protective of me. And so they were like my big brothers. And so I never told anybody. So then time progressed. That was like 2003. By 2004, I was back in the saddle, going everywhere, doing everything. I went to DINFOS and got my schooling done, combat camera school, and had a lot of fun there, and everything was great. And then when I came home, everybody was being deployed and sent to sorry, my dog's bugging me. Sent to the Middle East, to Iraq and through Kuwait, and then being deployed from there, Afghanistan, all these different places. And so they said that they would take volunteers first. So I said I would volunteer, I'll go. And so it was a short duty, which usually it was. They would drop us in and pull us out. We didn't stay in one place for very long, no matter where it was that we were working on. So I was there for 30 days, and I really had a good time as far as the people that were there, the people that I met on the base there, in the camps. It was very culturally shocking, even though I had been out in the field and with the tents and the medic tents, and we've done all that training and everything. So I totally was exposed to all of that. It was more of, and I know that they're not slaves that are over there. They're just not Kuwaiti citizens. But to me, they were like slaves. So that really affected me. And I had been schooled before I went over there that there were some women that were being stoned and beaten out in public and things like that. And so, they're like, Paula, you can't get involved. You cannot stop it. You can't engage. So I was really struggling with that. And then I see, these people that are being escorted around in like chain gangs. And that wasn't pleasant to see. I had a hard time with that. So then they sent me around. I'm going to pull him up, otherwise he's going to be a brat. Come on, go.
All right. There he is.
Yeah, this is Ranger.
Ranger.
My service dog. I'm
Nice.
the service dog. Yeah.
Service human.
Yeah.
All right.
So, I saw some things over there. I was never in live fire, but I photographed a lot of stuff after the fact that, it just really affected me, especially being a mom and all of that. It was more real than the trainings were, even though the trainings were very real. this was different. And the atrocities and things that I saw from Desert Storm that Saddam Hussein's men did to the other Kuwaitis and all of that. I saw all of that. I had to document a lot of stuff. It just started really weighing on me. When I got home, I was having nightmares, and it was triggering helplessness. I know that now. The inability to do something about something that you see is wrong. And so I started I call it going into the darkness. I was starting to have a lot of anger. I was going through a divorce then, and I just started drinking more and all of this. So I was telling a girlfriend of mine, hey, I'm kind of struggling here. And so she introduced me to another veteran. He was a Vietnam vet, and he got me involved in the vet center. And I didn't have a DD-214. So I had processed out. I came home. I had a chief thanks chiefs. I had a chief that was harassing me and gave me a bad eval while I was in Kuwait, and said that I wasn't a team player and all of this. But really what it was is that I wasn't playing with him his way. And, he was new to the unit. And so I didn't know him, and I wasn't comfortable shoveling it back. So I had to just kind of take it or avoid it. And so that was kind of my real introduction to, wow, this really sucks, besides what happened in San Francisco. So with everything that was going on, my life was just, in the dumps. And I got help at the vet center. And see, it's already affecting me. Man, every time I tell this story, I end up in the clouds. It's crazy, and I've been telling it for years.
No. Yeah, it's it's I know you've been telling it a long time, and I know this could be triggering, and it's one of those things when you tell your story, it's always triggering. But I hope you feel comfortable here.
Yeah, I do.
It's really important, I think, for anybody that's going to listen to this, that they get to kind of soak it in, that this is a reality that has taken place. And I thanks for sharing. And if you need to take a breath, take that breath, because I'm here with you, and I really appreciate you going here. This is a dark place.
It's hard crazy. Place. Yeah. It is. It's not that it's so hard for me to tell it. It's that I'm sensitive to the way others receive it. I don't like to trigger people. I want them to not feel alone, and then I'm also, you're afraid of saying the wrong thing. And I get a little too focused on that instead of just saying it like it is, and here's what it is. And so I really struggled, and I went in and went to the VA because I got very sick one day. So I thought I had VA, and I would no longer had my husband's insurance. So I show up at the VA at Loma Linda, California, and they see me. I was really sick, like pneumonia or something. And so they see me, but they say, they treat me and everything, and say, okay, you got to come back with your DD-214, in order to get in and all that kind of stuff. So I thought I had a DD-214. It was this beautiful, beautiful portrait picture of Paula J, honorably discharged. And I thought that was my DD-214 because I'd processed out so fast. I never received my DD-214. I kind of skipped over processing out, but this chief just really railroaded me, and everybody was deployed because it was, like I said, OEF, OIF was in effect, and nobody was really around. And so it was just pretty much, see you later, bye. And so I didn't get the proper out processing. So I showed up with this beautiful plaque paper, and they're like, that's not a DD-214. So then that just spiraled me, because then I had to fight to get a copy of my DD-214. Being a reservist, you don't get a DD-214. However, I had been activated, so I was active duty a few times. So I should have had a DD-214 for that, especially when I went to A school and DINFOS and all of that. So anyway, that took years of fighting to try to find my DD-214. I had one woman over the phone tell me that I forget what it was, but we had filed a claim for the things that were going on for mental illness, mental health, things like that. And I also, while I was in Kuwait, I got bit by something on my foot. My foot was swollen really big and dark gray. And, I had to have IVs and all this kind of stuff. It was just a whole nother crazy story. And so I was pretty much trying to just get service connected for that because I had to wear 2 different shoe sizes, and this is like a year later, 2 years later, I'm still having to wear 2 different shoes. So anyway, my advocate, he ends up getting me service connected. Going through the process was more traumatizing, I think, than the rape itself for me, because nobody believed me. I didn't have a DD-214. While we were fighting, trying to get me service connected for my foot, I had this one stupid lady tell me, and I had pictures of me in Kuwait. Thank God, usually it was me taking pictures of everybody else, but thankfully friends had taken pictures of me next to the Durka Durka sign, and so I, submitted that, and she's lucky she was over the phone. This one woman says, well, you could have been there on a family vacation. I was like, yeah. So that was one of my homicidal moments, because I was a very angry, pissed off bitch of a veteran at that point. And that was a lot of fun. So fast forward, Ronnie Imel is my advocate, and he works at the American Legion, volunteers and helps. He's a Vietnam vet, he's an Army Ranger, and he's helped hundreds, if not thousands, of veterans with their claims. He got me through and got me to 50%, I want to say, and that was for PTSD, but they wouldn't call it PTSD, they called it major depression. So that was wonderful. He started having more and more women come to him at this point in time. So this is in like 2005 is when I was in Kuwait. And then, so this was probably like around 2007. And he started having more women coming to him, needing help with their claim. And I still had not told him about my rape. And he asked me one day, he said, I want to ask you something. He says, you don't have to tell me if you don't want to. He says, but did you suffer with MST? And I was like, what's that? And he said, military sexual trauma. And I just started crying. I just lost it. I just started crying. And I was like, and I just told him everything that happened. And so then he filed for that. And that was when I got the 50%. As he had more women that were coming to him and being referred to him for help with their claim, he asked me if I would sit in with the girls, and because he felt they'd be more comfortable if they had a battle buddy there. So that's kind of what launched me into the advocacy. So I started doing that with him and started learning the claims process and just helping women kind of navigate the VA and connect them to their benefits. And I was their service dog with a mouth. And I just became more stronger and was getting mentally more balanced and refreshed and just able to navigate better. And being an advocate for others was my therapy. It just really made me feel good about what I was doing. And then the reward was watching them be able to learn to navigate and stand on their own as well. So Ronnie told me that I needed to start a nonprofit. And that's what launched Veteran Sisters. So I had started doing claims with him probably like around 2010, 12, somewhere around there. And then started talking to more and more women. And then we started Veteran Sisters. We got the nonprofit, and we just hit the ground running. And I had quite a few. I had a really nice board at one point. Several, all of us were volunteers. Nobody got paid. And I learned quickly that, veterans have a very strong heart and they want to help others, but sometimes maybe it's just not the right timing, right? And that was kind of like when I met you, was at the beginning of starting Veteran Sisters. I don't even think that we were actually a nonprofit yet. We just were starting to kind of grow and branch out and do Facebook, and all that had just started. And And over at Warrior Built, we went and met you. And I still, to this day, I still tell people that are starting up in advocacy, I tell them exactly what you told me, because we were talking about suicide. And you were concerned, and you said to me, you said, Paula, because we were talking, I said, yeah, how we're going to handle this if it happens. And you said, it's not a matter of if it happens, it's when it happens. And you have to be prepared for that. And so that was then when I went and I took, like, I forget what it was called, but it was like a suicide prevention 101 class and a self-help. And it was just these different classes that I went and took and got the certificates or whatever for, in order to navigate that, but more for self-protection, right? To learn to take care of yourself too. So Veteran Sisters primarily launched to be for female veterans with MST. And it grew and it grew. And then I started having people with MST referred to me, and then men started showing up. I had no idea. Back then I knew it happened to women, but I had never even thought about the fact that it would happen to men. And so it was like an aha, not an aha moment, but like a light bulb went on, and men started coming to me and they said, I feel more comfortable talking to you about this than I do men or the caregivers or family or anything like that. And I understood that. So then I started representing the men too. Representing meaning helping them navigate the claims system. So it became my specialty, was helping them write their personal statements. To me, that's the most important piece of evidence in anything, right? Is your statement, is what happened and you telling your story. So I just really gravitated to that. And because I'd been through it, I could help them recall things, and I knew the questions to ask, and they felt comfortable talking to me about it. And then once we put it onto paper, they were able to submit that as part of the evidence, but it also helped with the process of comp and pen. So, and I would tell them, even though we would get through it, it would be very, very challenging for a lot of them. Once it was on paper, they didn't have to tell it again. Because I can remember before I wrote mine out, when I go into my comp and pens, they'd ask you all these questions, and you'd try to answer them all, but you'd forget, you'd be flustered, and you'd walk out going, oh, I shoulda, woulda, coulda this. And you're beating yourself up and crying, and you're just a hot mess. So I told them, I said, once you write it down and you're in there and the doctor's got questions for you, hand him your statement, ask him to read it, then he can ask you questions from there. So that took a huge burden off of the veteran. And they were able to walk through that process of the interview much easier, with less trauma to them, even though it's still very hard. But that's when everything just really started growing more and more. I just found my niche. It was something I loved doing. We just started, and then I loved fighting the VA. I learned to navigate and talk with the providers. I would go with the veterans to their doctor's appointments so they weren't alone. And I even went to college with one student, with one veteran, helped her get into the college, the local college. She was just too fearful to go and do it by herself. So, I was their service dog. I was their support system, and just went wherever they went. I loved it. I had an absolute great time, helped a lot of people, felt really good about where we were going and what we were doing. And then in 2021, my son, my middle son, Chase, died in a car accident. And he was training to become an Army Ranger, just, 29 years old, peak of his life, just happy as could be, super excited for life and everything. And then he was Ricky racing around and crashed, and he died instantly. So I'm grateful for that. There's no suffering, but it kicked me in the gut, of course. And I just couldn't really function. And I had to step back from Veteran Sisters, and I had a vice president and a board and everything. And just, I had to step back, and the vice president took it over. And it was about, I don't know, I want to say like 9 months before I really was able to get back into the saddle, or somewhere around there. I don't, maybe it was only a month. I don't know, but it felt like forever. And I felt, I was trying to still be present and help out. But then my daughter got an offer to move to Tennessee. She's an RN, and she got an offer at the local hospital, Vanderbilt. And I just said, you go, we go. My oldest boy was doing awesome. He's a firefighter, paramedic for the city of Ontario, and his family, my 2 grandbabies, and life is very good for them. So, it was just my daughter and the baby. And so I said, you go, we go. So I took off, and then it just became too much. And so I stepped down from Veteran Sisters, and I just kind of hung out here, and I didn't know anybody. And I just kind of talking to another friend of mine who's a police officer veteran and retired sheriff for LA County. And he got medicaled out. He used to do a lot of undercover and stuff with sex trafficking and things like that. He's just an amazing man too, that I've known since the beginning of Veteran Sisters as well. But he's also a peer support and a chaplain for the police department in Texas. And he called me, and he knew, of course, that my son had died and everything, and he was kind of helping me with the grief on that. And he said, Paula, you've got to get back up in the saddle. Your veterans need you. I said, I just don't think I can do it. I'm not ready. I don't want to do the nonprofit thing. It's just not me. I want to help my veterans, but I don't want to do a nonprofit. And he said, okay, well, how about if you write a book? I was like, huh? Me? Me write a book? The girl who couldn't even have a 3rd grade reading level when she met her dad at 15, and it's like, okay. So, and obviously the Marine got me reading. I'm a very good reader now, but obviously, but I just was floored. And I was just like, oh, Ricky, that's wishful thinking. I don't think I can do that. But I woke up the next morning. I knew the title. I knew what I wanted to do. And I reached out to several of my veterans that I had helped write their stories. And I said, here's what I'm thinking. I would like to create a book that is of all of our stories, and let's, put it out there and help others that are struggling, and let them know that they're not alone. Because that was a big thing for me, was letting people know that they don't have to go through this alone. And so I did. I narrowed it down to 15 stories. Then I was having another veteran, a Marine Corps veteran that I was helping. I think I was helping him with asthma, or it was just physical, which is what I kind of learned to do too.
Hey, Paula, hold that thought for a second in case the audience wondering. Behind Paula, it's right there, Unjustly Served. Just why she's talking about the book and what's going on. If you want to know about it, it's right there on her back there. But it's also in the title of the thing. So carry on with your thoughts. You're just doing awesome. Keep it up.
Thanks.
Great.
I know I talk a lot. I know I can get off on my stories. So it's an anthology of 15 stories, and this other Marine Corps veteran that I was helping, he's a therapist. And so I'd kind of become his battle buddy, because even for the physical side, you still need to have your personal story, I believe, to tell the rater so that they have an understanding of how it's service connected. So we had become battle buddies. And so I started telling him, like, gosh, I'm learning a lot of stuff, because even though I know these stories, I helped them write them originally, we're having to now turn it into a story type format, or a follow along format with a little more detail. And so there was some questions that I was having, and then things that it was triggering for me. And he was a sexual trauma therapist, but he worked in the prison, and he worked with predators. But yet he had his private practice where he also worked with survivors and children. So he's very, looking in on it, you can see all the different angles and sides of this, brings it all together. And so he was just really giving me great insight to all these ways that the brain thinks, and the trauma triggers and the reactions and the survival, and why you survive this way, why some people fight, why some people flight. And then there was fawning. I'm like, what the hell is fawning? I had never heard of fawning. Fight, flight, or freeze. Sure, I always thought I was a fighter. But then when it happened to me, I was a fawner. So I fawned. I went along with it to get out of it, to survive it and get out of it. And I carried that guilt forever. So it helped me, and we called it connecting the dots. So he wrote the second half of the book, the back half, which is amazing because he takes the stories in real time, and he's able to connect the dots to the clinical side. So then as I'm editing and helping him with the back half, I was helping him more to dummy it down because he was using lots of clinical words and everything. And I'm like, you got to make this so people are going to want to read it. This isn't just college students, these are veterans, and the object of this is to make them feel comfortable and give them understanding. But you got to use words that are comfortable. So I helped him edit it down, and it turned out pretty freaking fantastic. It opened the door to conversations. It took it to a whole different level, way greater than I ever thought it would. It's now actually a wonderful tool for veterans or anybody suffering with sexual trauma or PTSD, because it really gives understanding as to why, if you remove the rape, if you remove the sexual assault and put it with a combat trauma or an accident or spousal abuse or whatever, domestic violence, childhood violence, anything, it gives you an understanding of why our brains react and why our bodies react the way that they do. It's phenomenal. So as survivors, and we're all different in the way in which we survive it, you carry the shame and the guilt of, I didn't respond properly, I didn't respond the right way, that's why it happened to me, or I didn't fight, or there's lots of different body responses too that are just normal ways for the body to protect itself. And I'm not going to, go into all of that. You have to read the book for that. But it opened doors to clinicians, doctors, ERs, chaplains, family members. Of course, when they read this, they get better understanding of why their veterans respond the way that they do. And so then they said, okay, you got to start another nonprofit. So I'm back to having another nonprofit, named it after the book, Unjustly Served. And I also now help with discharge upgrades. So with the mental health side of things, I really believe that a majority of the people who have been, other than honorably discharged, there's a reason why, for the most, I believe. And so I'm finding that to be pretty true. And we're able to get them service connected for the mental health side, and then getting some service upgrades once they tell their stories. So that's kind of where I'm at now. We created a BEARS Act, which is, we're lobbying, taking it to the Hill. In fact, it's going to probably next month in April. It will go to DC, and it's called the BEARS Act. You could learn more about it on the website, which is unjustlyserved.com. And sign your name that you support it. And it's called the BEARS Act, which, we love acronyms. So it's the Behavioral Accountability Reporting and Exposure System, BARES. And basically it's what the FBI did when they created the Criminal Minds series, the two men that got the FBI being able to track all of the across the country, the serial killers and all of that. There's a system that they use. And so when I took this and spoke to other people about it, I had somebody come to me and say, I want to write this up for you. And she's a writer that, a lobbyist that has lobbied other things for veterans, especially back during Desert Storm. She did a lot of TBI lobbying and had different acts passed and stuff like that through Congress. I don't know that whole side. I'm all new to it, so I don't even know the right words or terminology. But she wrote it up, so it's 125 pages. It's a document that will go to the Hill to be voted on, to hopefully get them to implement the same system that they use on the civilian side, that is a rap sheet or a tracking system, so that when you have these offenders in the units, it doesn't get covered up or washed out. That we can actually command to command can track them and follow, and it could be anything. It doesn't have to be just military sexual trauma. It could be any inappropriate or bad behavior, and that's on both sides. So if somebody is reporting falsely accusing people, and they do that from command to command because they get mad and falsely, it will also track that as well. So it's very detailed. It's amazing. And I'm just now starting to promote that and get that out and try to gather signatures so that we can hopefully find a congressperson or senator that will lobby for it and get it passed, because we have to do something. We have to remove the systems that exist now, which really isn't even a system that's within the command. It's just not fair to the commands to have to navigate a sexual trauma or any kind of trauma like that, any kind of felonies and things like that. It has to be removed. And so that's kind of what this BEARS Act does.
Well, thanks, Paula. This has been awesome. We got about 10 minutes left. I want to let you say any last words that you want to say. Again, Unjustly Served is her book. Really incredible thing. And it's also the website, unjustlyserved.com, correct?
Yes.
And there's so many incredible things. Just get on there and just sign up on there. There's some really incredible stuff to look at. It's a great support element. And just like this podcast becomes a category of resources for veterans to look at and say, hey, you know what, maybe I need to look at this one. This is really going to be one that's going to be important for female veterans and male veterans that are dealing with sexual trauma. I think it's really going to be important. And Paula, like me, she will help you out, but you have to be the force behind that help. Meaning you got to call, make those calls, and come to us with, hey, I want to be part of the group, or I want to be part of this, I want to be part of that. She will help you navigate the upgrade of your DD-214 and all that. She's already helped some of my veterans out down that pathway. So incredible stuff. Thanks, Paula, for everything that you're doing. So if people want to get a hold of you, put it out there. Any last words from you, feel free to put it out there now.
Please, you can contact me through the website, and we still do everything, claims process, all of that. We still help navigate anything and everything with our veterans, and we're pretty well resourced too. So we like to collaborate and help other organizations. I can't do it all, so I definitely resource out. Just like if you get somebody who needs help, please send them my way.
Well, thanks, Paula. It's so incredible. Thanks for being on the show. Thanks for being here. Thanks for telling your story like it is. And thanks for having the courage to kind of open up and be vulnerable for others to kind of, need that hope and that flag of where am I going to get help and support is super important.
Thank you.
And that there's a way out. That's what's important too.
Absolutely. A way through. Yes.
A way through.
A way through it. We can get you on the other side. Absolutely.
That's it. Yep. We have veterans transition. They're transitioning. They need resources. That's why we call it the center. We want to help other veterans find what they need. If we can't provide it, maybe we have the tools that other veterans have that we know that can help them in their journey. It can be really mind-boggling.
Yeah.
I know that for a fact.
Yeah. Yep.
And thanks for sharing the part where I spoke to you about the suicide piece, because I remember I know how hard it is, because you pour so much into these veterans and this and that, but you have to keep a separate shield up for the possibility that you might lose one in any given time. And it's very weird, and it almost feel guilty about the fact that you can compartmentalize that. But if you're somebody who can sympathize with everybody and try to help everybody along, it'll tear you apart if you stay in such a close category with everybody all the time helping your veterans. But you need to have some sort of barrier that's built for you to protect you from the devastation of something like that. So thanks for just kind of refreshing my mind, that aha moment that I get. I love it. And you shared it just amazing. So thank you very much, Paula.
All right. Thanks, guys. Take care.
All right. Chef JB, how you doing, brother? It's good to have you. Always. Hey, you got a lot to talk about. Feel free to open up, and Chef JB, chef and Coast Guard vet, co-host.
Yeah,
thanks,
first off, what an amazing lady and guest. I mean, she really told it like it is. I mean, she didn't pull any punches. I don't know if I could bare my soul like that. I mean, it takes a lot of willpower and guts, just to and then to work with other ones, reliving it all the time. I mean, that's that's her therapy. So, I'm glad she's got a service dog. As soon as she started talking about it, his head lifted up in the background. Then he came over to her and started whining because he knew her, you can't do that and not feel some emotion. And that's what that dog's trained for. So
that tension, that emotion, that
yeah,
spirit. Yeah, he's a breakup in the environment. So
yeah,
that's good.
So
Good stuff.
I mean, it's great that we're seeing our veterans working with other veterans like we do. I mean, sometimes we think, gosh, it's just an uphill battle and we're not going to accomplish anything. And then you bring on a guest like that, and here it is. I mean, she's doing awesome work. I mean, and the people she's touching, the veterans, oh my gosh, I got goosebumps, And on a good note, though, or a better note, I should say, than MST is we had the honor flight. And if nobody knows what the honor flight is, where they take senior veterans to Washington, D.C. for the weekend and show them all the war memorials personally, up close and personal. And they have an attendant for you. They pay for the flights, the hotel fares, the meals, and you all eat together and you talk, the camaraderie, the war stories. I mean, it's just a wonderful time for our senior veterans. And, I've been fortunate enough for the last 5 or 6 years to work with our chapter here in Las Vegas. And, Saturday we had over 500 people there. Probably 33% of them were veterans. And we just had a great time. The honor guard from the fire department, which was all veterans, they were there to do the Pledge of Allegiance, and a lady sang for us, a world-renowned soprano here in Las Vegas in one of the shows. And I mean, it just was a great event. I love doing that event. We do it twice a year for them because they send an honor flight twice a year. And Aaron, you got to be there and see some of it. It's just a really great program. I'm really happy to be associated with it because, I don't cook as much as I used to. And that gives me the chance to really get in the kitchen and feed 500 people and get it all done in a timely manner. We started at 6:45 in the morning, and by 11 o'clock we were done, 11:15. So in and out, it's kind of nice.
Yeah, it was incredible, and you got a lot of chefs helping you out, working it too.
Yeah.
And a lot of these chefs are under training from you. There's a lot of other things that are going on with it behind the scenes that you might not even know. And it was St. Patrick's Day celebration. So the area down there, downtown Henderson, Nevada, and it was at the Eagles Lodge, and it was packed. I mean, I couldn't even get out of it. I actually had to drive down the
service road
pathway. It wasn't even a service road. It's it's like a human pathway.
Okay.
and get out into a way where I could get with the flow of traffic, because otherwise I was just going to be totally bamboozled and everything was jammed up. But some other vehicles were doing it, and I was following suit. It's adapt and overcome kind of time, and it kind of reminded me of how we just do things in the military, is like we just adapt and overcome.
Yeah.
Way to go, chef. Way to go, chef. It was such an awesome deal, and keep going.
Thank you.
Whatever else you got.
And you know what? The girls are really great. We always take a picture. They have a camera there that takes pictures of everybody if they want a free picture. That group that does those for some of the different casinos, they volunteer their time and do free pictures for veterans at that event. So every year I always get all the girls together from Honor Flight, and we get a picture taken. It was really amazing. And Aaron, I got a picture with you too, so that's wonderful.
It was great. Yeah, and if you want to donate to the Honor Flight, look it up, hit it up, and please donate to it, because this is still taking the older veterans that are dealing with things. Obviously, we're down to just a handful of World War II veterans, but they're getting into the the Korean War veterans and the Vietnam veterans. I'm sure, and they're going to take them to those war memorials and give them a chance to really kind of check them out in Washington D.C. I think that's a spectacular deal, and it's quite an honor. So if you want to donate to some of these organizations, there's so many organizations to donate. They're all over they're over here. All this resources that the Veterans Transition Resource Center is putting out. There's just so many of them to kind of look at and say, hey, where do you want your help and support to go to? It's pretty cool.
Yep. So I think it's been a great show. I'm enthralled with Paula. She didn't pull any punches. She told it like it is, and that that's great. So, Aaron, thank you for letting me be part of this show. It's always an honor and an education at the same time. I got some more resources now.
Yeah, that's what it becomes. These are a lot of my resources. Fortunately, 90% of my guests I've known.
Yeah.
10% of them are people that are like referred to me in some fashion way, but somebody else knows them, and they're doing really incredible things, or they have an incredible story. And it's not like, not everybody has a nonprofit, not everybody has this, right? But it's the veteran story. It's all these different things. If you want to be on the show, check it out. Brian hit me up already with somebody. He sent me somebody this morning that wants to be on the show, and I think it's incredible. Yes. So. Yeah. There's all these really incredible things, and thanks for Brian Colburn and Stitch Radio behind the scenes knocking this out.
Yes.
And
Brian, great job.
All the people involved. Hopefully, we'll be in the studio next week. We're trying to get the internet to kind of work around the airport's navigational systems and blockouts and all this good stuff. So we're going to work on that. But honor to be here, and thanks for everything that everybody does. And Chef, you got any last words, brother?
Nope. Just have a great day and bon appetit.
Love it. Hey, until next time, this is Combat Vet Vision. It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to just kind of have these guests that kind of have the opportunity to just share their stories. And until next time, strength and honor. Out.
The only way, and we need nothing more. The only way, together forever, that's for sure.